What is going on? 16 weeks out, love and life, everything is exactly the same. I'm just eating less. And yeah, I'm cooking up some burgers. Now, you might be thinking, whoa, burgers on a prep. But no, it's just literally beef mince, and I've got a dry spice mix in there, paprika, and a few other bits and pieces. And I'm cooking it up on the barbie. Just got to give this thing a clean, so I'm not getting too many trace fats into my plan, as that is extra energy I do not need. Shredded glutes don't make themselves. So what's been going on? Well, not much different. Food dropped ever so slightly. I got a slight carbohydrate reduction, which was literally like, I mean, you could almost call it exactly the same plan. It was just a change in barbecue sauce, one that's slightly less dense, so more carbohydrate reduced than others. And look, I'm expecting a change this week to get the rate of loss sort of back up and running again. But I mean, last week I made some good improvements as the overall look without necessarily changing anything from a nutrition plan, which is perfect. It's almost exactly what you want. No nutritional changes, however, conditioning improves, which, you know, there could be other reasons for that, but generally they're positive reasons. Now let's get this cooking fest underway. I've got about 5 kilos of beef mince here into burgers. I unfortunately don't have the luxury of making food daily, so I do a big cook up, get my mince from my local butcher shop. I get special lean mince, get round steak, all diced up and minced for me, and that is as lean as you're going to get, people. Slightly leaner than your Woolies and Coles mince actually as well. And yeah, so I mix in a dry spice, normally some salt and pepper too, a bit of garlic in there, and I roll them up into 200 gram balls. Flatten them down on the barbie and cook them all at once. So this is going to do me for a fair while in terms of dinners. And then if I get any changes to the program, it's just simply adjusting. I have protein powder in there, so it's simple to adjust that to realign my macronutrients with the plan. You know, I've seen videos of people going, oh no, my coach changed my meal plan. And really, if your coach changed your meal plan and you don't know how to navigate that, that is an issue in itself. You should have the skills and tools to be able to handle that. So we're going to get these going, and yeah, we're just going to chat about the week of gone. In general, training's been great. I've been making still improvements from a week to week, session to session, and other than a slightly off Monday session, which overall was still great, I made a massive step in my leg session yesterday, which was amazing. I made progress and it didn't even feel hard. That's sort of the best progress in my opinion. When you make that progression and it almost feels like you could have done it the week before. Of course, it's not always like that. And that is the unfortunate thing, that it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Some weeks you won't progress, other weeks you will. But generally, in a contest prepper, you're still looking to maintain every single rep, every single kilo of weight that you put on that bar. However, there does come a time where you potentially need to take a look at your training and figure out whether your internal stimulus is the same. Because if you are moving loads for the sake of moving loads, in my opinion, it is not doing the same thing to the actual muscle. One example for me recently is actually the split squat. Absolutely love doing the split squat. I do it on a hammer strength piece. It's loaded to be heavier in the lengthened position and sort of ease off as you come up ever so slightly. However, I noticed in my last session, whilst I maintained, I was really shifting my hips back, and I was really changing the exercise and the way it's executed for the purpose of moving the load rather than having standardized execution. I know that it was not performed the same way in previous weeks, so I've now said to myself, okay, I need to now stay at the same weight. I need to accept that I'll potentially lose a rep or two, maybe even maintain again, but really dial in that execution. And I'm really looking forward to that session on Friday, or 2 days from now. Ensure that I'm moving forward in the right way. It's very easy to just keep tracking the logbook and not necessarily keeping your exercise execution in check. And that isn't what you want. We want standardized execution, ensuring that we're creating a stimulus to the muscle. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't allow for zero, what you could call body language, but for me, that was too much. So chill out a bit, come back, take a little bit of a reassessment of my technique and move forward from there. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So these burgers are really coming along well now. I also do the same thing with my chicken breast, do massive 5 kilo bulk order at my butcher shop, and I come through and cook that up all at once, and it is immensely better than Woolies. The tenderness and the succulent taste of the butcher's chicken breast, I know that might sound a little bit funny, but compare that to Woolworths. Woolworths was so dry, it was so bad. The reason why I do get my meat from a butcher shop, and really quality wise and talking about micronutrients and stuff, probably very much the same. The way in which it's potentially processed, the chicken that I get is far better. I guess another update is I've also really been ramping up my posing. It's been coming along really well. Just started getting into my routine, or not getting into it, but sort of piecing it together. As I want that to be ready really like 8 weeks out, or it's probably going to be finished in the next 3 to 4. And I've got the music down, and it's really just about now getting the posing flow. So what pose am I going into from pose to pose? Just figuring out that whole dynamic of what looks best, how can I transition in the smoothest way, and it's coming along well. I guess I will may as well touch on a bit of bodybuilding news. It was pretty cool to see from the natty scene AJ hop up on stage. No one's really seen him in a long time. I thought he looked really good. I mean, if I'm to give a personal perspective on his performance, I thought some poses I personally didn't like. Just the way he hit his back shots. I really want to see his glutes. He's got peeled glutes, and I wanted to see them. He sort of had his hips tilted back, which again is another discussion of, should you have your hips tucked back to allow for more thickness through the inner thigh? And look, my opinion on that is there is a balance to be found, and you can have that gap filled in. However, it's always a give and take situation. If you tuck your hips in too much, you're going to lose potentially that entire thickness and gain that gap in between your legs. However, if you don't tuck in your hips at all, you're going to lose your glute detail, as the glutes cannot be contracted when they're fully lengthened. Well, not fully lengthened, but in a lengthened position compared to a shortened position. So you're not going to get that same detail. Was it an issue for him? No, he won the show. So, does he need to change anything? Maybe if he comes up against stronger competitors, that might, and he may have got feedback from the judges with regards to his posing. So I'm sure if he did, he will be one to implement the change. And at the end of the day, one's preference is not the same as the people that are judging you, right? If your goal is for the highest placing, which I'm sure most people's is. And other than that, I thought one of the juniors in that UK show, jacobmanher, I believe his name is, he looked amazing. Really crazy proportions for a young guy. No thigh gap, good back, good glutes, came in great conditioning. I believe Reese is his coach. He did a great job. And then we also had, well, over the last 1 to 2 weeks, we had NBA in Australia, had WNBF Nationals, and then I believe this weekend is the ICN Nationals for first season this year. And you had Graydon and then Scott Nelson take out the classic and bodybuilding accordingly in the WNBF. And then you had a youngster, I forgot his name, take out classic in the NBA. And then I can't remember who took bodybuilding in the NBA. But the winners of each division, I thought, brought really good packages. Prefer mostly bodybuilding over classic nowadays in the natty scene, just because of the conditioning difference that seems to be coming through from who's winning. I think, yes, as a natural, you do sacrifice a level of fullness and shape in some way to get more conditioned. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I want to get conditioned for a show. I really want to put in the hard yards. So I prefer a bodybuilding criteria set for my own preferences, right? Like there's people that can do both bodybuilding and classic, but not everyone can do classic because not everyone has a small waist, good B-taper, and nice proportion. So there is that difference, and I do believe that I could do both. However, I want to get peeled, and I'll probably get marked down in some federations for being too lean in the classic division, as just the way they got the criteria set up. And the reason it's different like that compared to the IFBB is because you don't have a limitation of size. Like the IFBB guys can get as big as they want. However, in order to make the division different to bodybuilding, they have to have some restrictions in there. Whereas the natty guys, I mean, I think everyone as a natural is just trying to get as big as they can. But they're limited because there's no enhancements. So you are incapable of growing to a point where weight classes or categories are needed, or sort of weight caps are needed. And so the only way to make it different from bodybuilding is something like conditioning or putting more emphasis on asymmetry, which they do. But for me, it then misses the point of, you know, the diet and all that, which is my opinion. However, I do understand it from a point of administration and organisation. But yeah, other than that, I believe we've covered enough. There wasn't really a huge amount to touch on. Training's been great again. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Probably be a little bit lighter. A few people have been asking me about weight predictions. How light are you going to be? How heavy are you going to be? And I honestly don't know. I had a goal set over a year ago of being 80 on stage, about probably 2 years ago. And I might be getting close to that, which is kind of cool. But again, the emphasis isn't really put on the weight. It's more just about bringing in my best package, really conditioned, and presenting it really well. And those three things, if I tick them, I'm pretty satisfied. But at the end of the day, I'm quite competitive. So I'm sure I will be more satisfied with a high placing compared to a low placing, but trying to place as little emphasis and value on that as possible. But I will check in with you guys next week.